already started recording, so we just kind of...
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you know.
Oh, we sound like idiots.
Well, that's fine. I mean, that's really what our shtick is, right? I mean...
True.
So, hey, how's it going? This is our first episode of the Creative Arcade podcast that we're going to call the 8-Bit Podcast. I'm Jeff, partner interactive director here at Creative Arcade.
And I'm Phil, partner and creative director at Creative Arcade.
He's the man with the master plan. Yeah, so hey, thanks for joining us. This is something we plan on keep to do periodically, just for fun, just to explore and talk about some things in design, marketing, things that interest us, which is vast, and I don't know. We talk about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think today what we're going to talk about is where we came up with the name Creative Arcade and what it means to us and why we think you might like it.
You as the listeners at home here?
Yeah. I was looking at you when I said that, but I know. Really meant the listeners.
We look at each other a lot during the day.
That's kind of weird.
Well, you know, share a big stand-up desk and eat lunch together. And
should we start over?
No. This is the stuff that dreams are made of right here.
I just heard lots of people simultaneously clicking off of our podcast.
Probably, but I think that's part of the allure.
Mm-hmm.
Allure, right. Is that the right? I don't even know if that's the right word.
I think it's good.
Well, you know, yeah, no. So the Creative Arcade, yeah, it took us a long time to reach that. You know, who we are as a or who we wanted to be when we first started out working together. I know it was kind of okay, that's great. We want to do something together as a team, start this business together. But we're like, you know, what do we call it and what makes sense? And I don't know. We had a lot of meetings, a lot of talking on the phone and texts about what the heck should we call this thing.
Yeah, we had lots of meetings and phone calls and emails and text messages and
a couple beers.
Yeah. I think it's unbelievable the amount of names that we created in this list of possible names or names that were definitely out.
Did you ever keep that list, by the way? Because I mean, I think I got rid of the mountains of text, but
I think I still have the text messages and some of the emails, but I'd really have to look back and through my notes, but I think I have the written stuff as well. So I
mean, there were some that I remember laughing hysterically at, like, how does those words even fit together? What does that even mean?
And there was the flip side of that, where we come up with a name, we're high-fiving each other, and we thought we came up with the greatest name in the history of Earth, and wake up in the morning and bought the domains already the night before.
I was going to say,
what were we thinking?
How many domains do we now own that we'll never use?
We have dozens and dozens of domains for great creative agencies. So if you're looking to start your own creative agency,
we can sell them.
To you.
We should totally sell them. We'd make a fortune.
So I think Creative Arcade was one of those names that we said, and I think I may have mentioned it, and you said, "Well, I don't hate it." I think it's kind of your first reaction.
Well, yeah, I remember, maybe not right away, but somewhere earlier in the process was something that we really liked, and we'd never said, no way, we're not doing that, but we were like, oh yeah, that's totally it. You know, it's more like, well, that's fine, what else have we got?
Yeah, so I think it was a matter of weeding out all the bad ones, and then we just kept coming back to some of those core ideas we wanted to do with this business, and it just kind of stuck, and it really fit. And I think we should probably explain how it fits.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that, you know, that before we even get started with that, I remember, you know, of course, right away you always want to, like, okay, what are all the negatives around this? I mean, it sounds cool, but what are people going to think? And it's easy to kind of get, you know, I don't know what's the right word for it, like put it off as that's maybe not the right thing because of X, Y, and Z, but you know, maybe A, B, and C is good reasons for it, but X, Y, and Z is why we shouldn't do it, you know. But, you know, and a lot of that was obviously the word arcade. I think a lot of the thoughts we had was, well, if we're in business a while, are you're going to have parents dropping off their kids with a roll of quarters or $20 looking for tokens?
We'll see you in 2 hours, honey.
Yeah, right. So I know that was one of probably our biggest thing is just the word arcade. But
I think one of the other things we thought too is our current clients, they know us, they respect our work, they know how we are, with a customer service aspect. But what about those?
What does Becky mean now?
I just told Jeff to make sure his phone was off, and I think I turned mine on.
Phil has the coolest ringtone. It's the is that Mario, right?
Super Mario Brothers,
yeah.
So, I've had that ringtone since I've owned a cell phone.
I think you have, as long as we've known each other. I think I always remember.
I've changed it a couple times, and then I have no idea who's calling. I think it's somebody else's phone.
I always break out into like my fake DJ dance where I've got my headphones up in my ear and I'm scratching a record.
And it's kind of like what we're doing right now. So, yeah, back to that. I think the potential clients was something we had a little concern about. If people hear that name, are they going to really understand the breadth of what we do and what we want to offer and where we're going with this business? And I think we thought about those negatives and thought, you know what, I think there's enough positives with this name that we can get past that, and I think other people will see past it as well. And hopefully someday, I don't know if it's happened yet, but I hope someday it's just, Creative Arcade. It's that people don't even think about it. It's just who we are. And
whoa,
I think the air conditioner just turned off.
It totally did. I can actually hear my head think. If that makes sense, but yeah. No, and that's the thing. I mean, the more we started to kick around like what we wanted to do and how the name applied, the more it made more and more sense. And I'm proud of the fact that we didn't just glom onto the first thing or first couple ideas that we did have. I mean, there were some kind of cool ideas that we had, but nothing that ever, like you said, we'd sleep on it, and the next morning you'd be like, "That's the dumbest name ever." Why were we?
Well, and I think the fact we didn't want to play it safe either. I think there was a lot of safe names that we could have picked that, I think when we were bouncing this name off of people, most people had real positive feedback, but there were some people like, why aren't you using your last names, or why aren't you calling yourself a agency, or...
Well, and with our weights... who knows? We might kick the bucket someday, and then I'd be stuck with Davidson something, or you'd be stuck with Ruprecht something, and I don't think either one of us would, maybe want to do that.
It's just not what we wanted.
Right.
So I think some of the reasons we did like the name, I think we really believe in the power of play, and I think, Jeff, you can explain that and why we chose that aspect.
Well, I mean, basically, and I don't want to make it sound cliche, but I mean, I think for us, it's I think a lot of places try to think they're innovative or, they're doing things that are maybe different than the norm, especially in this kind of business. And I'm not saying what we're doing is groundbreaking, but I mean, we've just always wanted to be a little bit more, I guess, not by the book with it. I mean, we definitely do all the same things we've always done when we worked for other agencies in town and things in the past, but we're not afraid to check out, what if we did this, or what if we, instead of always doing this that we maybe have wanted to do or have been told to do in the past, or maybe seems to be the way to do it. It's like, well, what about this way of doing things, or just that and how we work with our clients. But the other side of that would be things when we're not doing working with clients is just their own curiosity. I think creatives definitely have other ideas and other things that they think are cool, or has some kind of inner working with what they do, and so to be able to explore some of those things, I think it's definitely worth the time and effort to try new things, to say, what if we did this or that. Whether you actually do anything with it commercially or whatever, that skill or that thing you've learned by doing that is worth it. I think it helps elevate our client work in general then, as we learn that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing I want to be known for is I don't want people to think of us necessarily as just a design group or advertising agency or marketing or anything like that. I want to be known as creative problem solvers. And I think... we know our limits as well. So I think if people, our clients or potential clients, want to come to us with, any problems they have in that realm, I think we'd love to be able to solve them. And if we can't, we know our limits, and we can rely on maybe some of our vendors or people that we've used in the past, or some of our partners that we're using, or flat out just tell a client that we can't do it. But I don't think that's not in our nature. I think we're going to figure out how to do it, and we're gonna do it well. That's the idea.
Yeah, and I think when you think of being innovative, I think there's different levels of that, and I think when you're willing to try a new thing or apply a different skill to something that maybe you haven't done before, and maybe do something different, I think there's it could be something as simple as just a specific technique in some of your work. It could be branching out and making this or making this kind of product, or what I mean. I think there's different ways to. Heck, I mean, we're not that podcasting anything new, but for us it is new, and I think it's just showing that we're willing to dive in and do that. And I think that again, it's that idea of playing around with an idea and producing something, and then seeing what sticks, what doesn't, what we've learned from it, and then how do we use that going forward, in our work and for our clients. So anyways.
Well, in addition to the power of play, I think the reason Creative Arcade works, the arcade part of it, is Jeff and I both went through schools that taught a lot of fine arts, in addition to design. So we were taught some of those traditional techniques and things like that. And we were both at other agencies where we did a lot of very traditional advertising and things like that. Hold on, my mic's getting moved here.
Oh, I was just checking to make sure it was on.
Oh. So a lot of those traditional things you can think of as, skee ball or those kind of type games, where we definitely embrace all of that, but we also want to be cutting edge. And, as we grow, we want to get more so to that side. So you think of some of the brand new games that come into an arcade, and they're sitting right next to a skee ball machine, but it works because, people come there for different reasons. And I think it just shows hopefully eventually the breadth of what we can do is we can offer, all of those type of things, and we believe in all of those things. So that's another reason I think the arcade portion works.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, from an umbrella kind of thought process, I mean, that's totally it. But even if you start to get really detailed or some very specific medium, there's obviously a lot of things under that you could also branch out to. So I think it's kind of, goes on forever with what you can do. So, I mean, that's just a little bit about kind of our thought process and kind of the culture we want to build here at Creative Arcade. I think it's just, again, that power of play. And I think it means a lot of different things potentially, but it's just something that, every time we're thinking about a decision we're making as a business, trying new things, we're always like, well, does that fit into our kind of idea of play, and what are we going to learn from it, and what can that offer our clients? And that helps us, I think, a lot of times decide if whether a decision makes sense or not. So I think we've used that a few times. I think it's a good kind of positioning, if you will. I don't know if it's really a true position for us, but it's definitely an ideal that we feel good about and has helped us learn some things. So yeah. So
yeah, I think it, like you said, I think it has already creeped into our work, where we've been asked to do a couple of very traditional type projects for a client, and we thought, well, I think we should probably shift over to this medium or this idea instead, and it's really grown that client for us, and they've been successful, and they're very happy with what we're doing, and now we're continuing to do more of that work with them, and we've seen that with a couple other things too.
Yeah, definitely. So anyways, I
think one thing I thought was really cool, and not to go into all the techniques and everything that we're planning on doing, but I was in Bemidji a couple weeks ago at the Bemidji State University, and they are starting to they're starting to get into some virtual reality. And so they had some.
Here comes the air conditioning.
Yeah, there's air conditioning again. So they had some stations set up where you could test out some of this technology, and it's it was very. I don't know how you say it. It wasn't like revolutionary or anything like that. It was pretty basic what they had, but wow, it's just kind of mind blowing. And not that that's the next thing we're going to jump into, but I think there's definitely potential in that kind of thinking, and
I think you're going to see more and more of that. It's already, ever since the Oculus Rift and those types of hardware packages have come out over the last couple of years. I know they were kind of the first with Kickstarter, and Facebook's kind of glommed on with that. But there's already a lot of applications for that are already kind of starting to be looked at, and I think you're just going to see more and more of that kind of thing. So I think if whether we want to or not, I think that might be one of those potential growing types of mediums in the future here. So
yeah, I think that is one of the things I was able to try, and in addition to that, the expenses coming down on some of the other things. I tried I think is it Samsung, where you stick your phone into those goggles, and I was able to try that.
Is that cardboard or whatever?
No, this one wasn't.
That was the Google one.
Yeah, there is a cardboard version of it, but this one was hard plastic, but it was $100 piece of hardware, and or I don't even know if it's hardware, but. And you put your phone in there, and boom, you're looking at some virtual reality type stuff, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, for me, personally, I'm not like, I got to try on these big gigantic goggles, but when you start thinking about the applications, it's something that maybe it's not for me, but I think for a lot of people it might be one of those interesting ways to again engage with whatever that is, whatever kind of content. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, as soon as people start figuring out how to monetize this for their own business, I think there's going to be a big spike in it, and the technology is only going to get better and cheaper, and it's going to be a lot more mainstream. And
yeah, it's coming. I'm sure. I'm totally sure. One other thing too that we're doing. We've been doing a lot of different things with. And actually, this is a simple thing. We want to get a sign outside of our building here with a Creative Arcade logo on it, but we don't want to just do a flat plastic type thing. We wanted to see what would be kind of cool is if we could kind of cut something out, make it a little more three-dimensional, really beautiful color, and just make it really, I don't know what the word is for it, kick ass, I guess, for lack of a better term, but. There's a product called the X-Carve, I think we're gonna try and buy that, aren't we?
Yeah, I think. Well, it's easy to try it. Just hand them money, and they hand you an X-Carve.
And give you an X-Carve, and then you go, cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we've talked about, and probably on our radar very soon here. And
a friend of ours at another agency, he has one at home, and he's done some pretty awesome. What are you laughing at? Okay, it's Ken Zakovich for those that know him, but. Hey Ken, if you're listening, cool. We really like what you've been doing with that stuff. I think we're gonna, we'd like to see what he's been doing with it, and it's funny. It's one of those cool like bridges between design and, from a graphic standpoint and typography and all that. And how do you take that and now cut physical three-dimensional wood objects out of it and put it together into something else? It's kind of an interesting thought. And even from a marketing standpoint, what does that mean even for, someone that maybe has a product or some kind of packaging piece? And I think there's definitely, time worth, spending on something like that to see, well, what does that mean for a potential client? And so we're going to try that, I think, out soon. Kind of an interesting concept. Mm-hmm. Putting on some wood and some typography and a little paint and I don't know, whatever else.
And then we'll have a sign.
Hey, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Where are you guys located? Oh, we're above Langes Canal Park. Where?
You're in the DeWitt Sites building,
right? You're in the DeWitt Sites building, right?
No.
Nope. No. You know where DeWitt Pack is? Yeah, it's right by DeWitt Sites, right? Yes, but we're not in DeWitt Sites. Anyways. No, we're going to do that. I think it'd be kind of fun. We'll definitely share that at some point. So, but anyways, wow, there's someone flying by on their bike or something outside.
So I think this is, as our inaugural podcast, I think it's all over the place, but I think that's okay. That's probably the way this thing will go, because we're just doing this for fun, and we want to let you know what we're up to and some of our thoughts. And I think one of the other things we wanted to talk about that doesn't really have anything to do with our name necessarily was the Instagram rebrand. Yeah.
The internet lost their mind last week. I know. kind of remind me when the Google thing happened last year. Everyone lost their mind too. But
yeah. So what do you think of the new Instagram brand or identity?
I personally, I mean, I love. Well, number one, I love Instagram. It's funny, Instagram been around a long time already, even before Facebook bought them. And I know it was kind of a favorite by a lot of young people, and I had joined on right away, but I didn't see the allure right away. And I don't know, about 2-3 years ago, I just kind of made a concerted effort to kind of start using it a little bit more and searching out some other little brands and things I follow and artists and stuff. And the more I started seeing what they were doing, and then I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And at that time, I think I was really crazy about Pinterest, which I still am too, but I find Instagram just to be, I don't know, it's one of those kind of like sit down at off times, have something to do and just kind of flip through and just be, every time you kind of swipe up, it's like a new experience every time of, oh, look at this cool thing, look at this today, so, but anyways, as far as their rebrand, I personally, I like it. I do like a lot of the new pieces to it. I think it does kind of give it a, from where they were to where they are now, I think it was needed to kind of do something that was a little more updated. Personally, whether it's the right thing or not, there's elements that I think a lot of people are just having problems with. There's a lot of elements to it that I think you're basically told in design school and stuff you never do, and they did it. But yet, I also think it kind of works for them, like with the gradient and stuff like that. But others just are like, no way, that's something you just never do. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think you've looked into it a lot more than I have. You've done a lot more, read a lot of articles and stuff about it, where I didn't even know it was happening until after the internet lost its mind. I kind of noticed what was going on, and my first reaction is I kind of thought the logo I saw was a joke. I really didn't think that was their actual new logo. And I think not that their old logo was amazing and great, and I just think it's one of those things that I just grew accustomed to seeing, and not knowing the change was coming, just seeing the change, I was a little shocked. And I think what you said about the gradient is probably my biggest problem. I try to keep gradients out of logos, and a lot of that is for the reason of reproduction and, more on the printing and embroidery, all those kind of things, right, where it doesn't work well. Instagram doesn't have most of those worries, where they're more, internet or app based, and you don't have to worry about reproduction. So I give them a little credit on there, but I just really don't like gradients either.
Yeah, so. It is. It definitely stands out if you look on your phone, and if you've had the update, it definitely stands out. Like, I've got all my social apps kind of grouped in a subfolder on my iPhone, and boy, that's the first one you see every time, just because of that bright gradient background. But then too, if you look at their user interface, which you went to more of a black and white, without the gradient, it's very, very minimal. I give it that, but I don't know. It kind of has this futuristic feel to it. It's almost like a step forward a little bit in especially as they kind of have new things they're doing with their video and lengths of video and the new features they're gonna do now, and I'm sure in the future. I don't know. It kind of has I think kind of a next generation feel to it, but
well, and you have something there. You talk about the interface, and we did just look at the site on our desktop, and I think seeing it just in black and white and very simplified, I don't mind that nearly as much. I think that one is much more appealing to me. It's so, I guess, in one version I like it, and the gradient, it's just not for me. But I'm not gonna lie that in a month from now I'm gonna completely forget we had this conversation, and when I go on my phone I'm gonna go right to it and not even think twice about it. So it's just gonna grow on me, and I'm not. That's what it is.
I will say it is quite a jump from where they were, though. Whereas like the Google logo last year, a lot of people lost their minds too about that and saying, "Well, there's no thought behind it" or whatever. But really, think about Google and what they've already established and what kind of brand equity they already have built up into what they had and where they kind of went. To go totally different than where they were, I think would have been a big mistake. And that's why I've always, since day one, liked the Google rebrand, because I feel like it's a kind of a compromise step, and it did unify a lot of their products and stuff in a way that was different enough, but yet was still unifying in the whole system. And I think as time has gone on, and I think as people have used it, you don't hear about it much. I mean, I'm sure there's still people that still hate it, but I don't know. I think for a lot of the reasons I originally liked it, I like it even better now. So between the two, yeah, I think Instagrams is probably a little more. Boy, we got some nice floors here. Anyways, it's. For me, I like it. I don't know if I'm not 100% jumping up and down over it, but I definitely don't hate it like a lot of people.
Yeah.
This week we're going crazy, and last week we're going nuts about it.
Well, I think if you look back at what you were just saying about Google's rebrand of their logo, it was more than just the one logo. It was, like you said, all of their
There's
applications
so
and their sub brands and things like that were unified, where on the general surface most people probably didn't know they had all those products or that they existed, or looked into it. So I think as an overall, I think that they made the right move there for sure.
Yeah. Well, and as a tech company, I mean, it's definitely, and like you said, it is mostly a mobile, and it's an online brand. It's not like, I'm sure, I mean, obviously they're going to have times they're going to have printed pieces, and they're going to have maybe merch and stuff like that, but when you really boil it down to who they are as a company and what they provide as a service, I think they can get away with some of that stuff that maybe you weren't traditionally told to do. But does it make it right or wrong or indifferent? I don't know, but yeah, there's definitely parts I like. There's some stuff I think could have been better, but I think overall I personally like it. But
well, let's tie this whole thing back together now, and let's talk about the Creative Arcade name and our actual logo and what inspired us to do that, and some of the other things like 8-Bit Labs that we're currently doing right now.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean,
good segue.
It's a good segue, Phil. Nice. Thank you for asking. No. Well, yeah, I know. That was the next thing. Obviously, we came up with Creative Arcade, and then I was like, well, what's going to be our look and feel, and what makes sense? And I think we definitely wanted to be simple. I mean, we both have that kind of design sensibility of kind of simple and I don't know what the word is. Not necessarily bold, but I think we're just clean lines and very very thoughtful in using what we have to our advantage versus trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. I know with the word arcade, though, we did feel like we almost had to have some sort of homage, if you will, to an actual video game or arcade, and
that was a big balance right there. I think going back to one of the fears we had that we didn't even know we had until we told people the name was when we told people Creative Arcade. I think, I don't know, probably 9 of the first 10 people I told, they said, "Oh, do you have a bunch of old school arcade games up in your office?" And
you guys play Androids all the time,
right? And I think that's really subsided. I actually haven't heard that one in quite a while now. But
yeah, you guys play Tecmo Bowl. How did that go the other day?
We should post a link to that.
Touchdown, Bo Jackson.
It's a Family Guy episode where they play Tecmo Bowl. It's fantastic.
It's pretty good. No, but so yeah, it was just a lot of exploration into elements of games, but boiling it even down even more minimally to some of the classics like Pac-Man stuff. If you look at some of their the pathways and stuff, they've got this kind of colored line art and stuff, and so that's you look at some of our lines and stuff, they're just kind of simplistic basic lines, and at different times they've got this curvature to it and kind of create these other paths based on if it's an ad or on our business card or any of that kind of stuff. So again, without going crazy, there was, those elements made sense because it kind of felt like an old school arcade game without actually saying I'm an old school arcade game.
Well, right, and I think to really simplify that, I think the logo itself is, it's a little rocket ship that has a 8-bit technology to it, which, in real simple terms, basically it's a big block of color, and or an image made of blocks of color, and
pixely looking, but
very pixelated, like the old school video games. And I think,
we kept it to just that. We didn't want to go we could have did that to everything. The words are now pixelated, and we just no way. We need to do something, but we just took the negative space out of the A, and this looks like a rocket ship. And so it kind of was our one little.
And let's not say that we didn't try explore.
Oh yeah, we did.
Versions of.
Remember the original rocket ship was just a triangle.
Yeah, it was very simplistic. We had, as we do with all of our logos that we design, it was hundreds of different variations on the same concept and different concepts.
I think we had 4 or 5 different Illustrator files with about 10 artboards on it each, and they were just packed with stuff and sketches and
I think we do this for a living. We help companies either rename or their startups that are naming their company for the first time, and we help them do that, and we help them create a logo, an identity, and a brand, and we do that all the time. But to do it for ourselves, it was probably the hardest project I've ever worked on.
It was definitely not easy, but then even when we got to the point where we're like, okay, I like this, but and when we started using it a little bit and to get some validation, and from of course, friends and family are always the worst because they're always being, oh, that looks great, whether they like it or not.
Well, unless while we were doing this, we were starting up this rest of our business, and we were actually starting up another business we're involved with, which I think we'll talk about in future podcasts.
Right.
But so we had a lot of stuff going on at the same time here, and it was not, I'm not going to say painful, but it was a stressful for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely, and to be able to shift gears and really pour yourself into something like that, and with all the other things going on, was a little bit difficult. But yeah. I mean, I still really like our look, and I think a lot of other people do too.
So.
Right. So we're not changing it for a while.
Well, I think the hardest thing I had to deal with was we're asking people to give us money to design them a logo or a new identity or a new name. So I wanted to have something I'm proud of to show them, to say, look, we did it for ourselves. I didn't want to have something that was half-assed and then say, hey, look, we design logos. And
yeah. I mean, the more and more we've been interacting with it, and more we've been putting out, the more and more I feel really validated with our choice of our business name and where our identity ended up and where I think it's going. So, high five to us. Virtual? No. Oh, hey, nice.
That was not a sound effect. That was a real high five.
Nice high five, man.
You probably heard it in both mics.
Yeah.
So I think, Jeff, we've kind of gone all over the place with this a little bit. Our first one, I think maybe we wrap it up, and then I think we're going to hopefully improve a little bit on these podcasts. Some of our topics.
We're going to learn more. We'll get better. We have to get a button bar or something. Interject some sound effects.
Right. So I think just hang in there and stick with us, and hopefully we can give you some good content here in the future.
We're going to try. I mean, everything we're going to blab on, and if you just want to put it on your earphones and zone out, whatever, we'll keep doing it.
I think we really need to have some kind of a sign-off that really resonates with the people.
Yeah, what was like a Casey Kasem? What a Casey Kasem? No.
You're old.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, have a good rest of the week, folks. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.